In more than 20 years of practicing medicine, I've collected interesting facts about your body. Join me on a tour head to toe of
Your body is interesting.
The heart is merely a pump for blood. One imagines red blood cells as spheres, but actually they're shaped differently, and I'll explain to you why. The red blood cells are like little boats that travel through your circulatory system, making deliveries and pickups. This exchange occurs across their surface, and because there's a certain shape that maximizes the amount of surface membrane for a given volume of a cell, which is actually a disc instead, specifically a disc that has a dent on both the top and the bottom, like a breath mint. They're not spherical at all. In cartoons, a raindrop is depicted as a teardrop, but it's actually shaped more like a red blood cell. As it falls, the shape conforms to the same breath mint shape called a biconcave disc for the same reason, to maximize its surface for a given volume. Speaking of rain, when tornadoes occur above a body of water and catapults the water into the air, which then falls again as rain, has generated some very curious rain over the years. Back in the 1800s in Romania, the sky rained black earthworms. Incidentally, earthworms by weight constitute 50% of the mass of all animals on our planet. The reason for that is that most animals live on the surface only, but earthworms have many layers to proliferate. And in Germany in the 1800s, it rained snails. Red rain and green rain have also occurred where the tornado pulls up algae from the body of water, and that's what rains down in these bizarre colors. Red blood cells survive for 90 days. If it creeps you out that a transfusion is from someone else's blood in your body, just wait 3 months and it'll disappear. The earliest transfusion was in the 17th century, which is King Louis XIV's era, when a young boy was transfused with lamb's blood in failed efforts to treat fever. Years ago, actually, the common practice was the opposite, was to remove blood from someone who was sick, as if that would remove their illness. Now, this erroneous practice is what was behind the death of President Washington in the United States. He had a sore throat, and within 24 hours they removed 4 quarts of his blood, which constitutes 75% of all of his blood, and he died. Now, there's another way to remove blood from the body, and that's by the application of leeches to the skin. This practice was so common that physicians themselves came to be known as leeches. The medieval practice of using leeches goes on to this day. For example, there are certain hematomas, little collections of blood, that you apply a leech to sap the blood, and also certain skin grafts where the establishment of circulation to make the graft catch is promoted by, again, applying these leeches. The leeches have other benefits. Their saliva has anti-inflammatory properties, So what you can do is stick one of these leeches on a painful joint to relieve the inflammation. Now there's some other unsavory critters that are used in medicine. Back in Napoleon's day, his surgeons noticed that if you were to apply a bunch of maggots to a war wound, it would heal better. Then there's the cone snail. Its venom can block the transmission of painful nerve impulses into the spinal cord, and have been applied in research to someone's back to block the ascension of the painful nerve impulses from below. Research is underway to try to purify that venom. Now, getting back to blood itself, we have 5 liters. That means that in the bloodiest crime scene, if you try to imagine 5-liter bottles full of blood, say from an empty soda bottle, and throw it on the floor, that's as much blood as you'll ever see. Now, it is true that blood is thicker than water. Specifically, it's as thick as seawater. In fact, seawater is the closest fluid in nature to human blood. Now, that is true so much so that a marine tropical fish can live in an aquarium of blood. Regarding the true color of blood, you think of it as red, but really it's yellow. The kidneys filter your blood. They keep the red cells, on one side of the filter, and let the fluid pass through to the other side as urine, which, as you know, is more yellow than it is red. So the true color of blood is actually yellow. Now, we've mentioned the red blood cells in your blood, but actually there's 2 others. There's the white blood cells and the platelets. The white blood cells are sort of like that movie The Blob. They slither and find invading microorganisms and engulf them. The platelets are what a scab is made out of. No doubt their job is to clot the blood whenever you get a cut. Now, there is a microorganism, the causative agent of AIDS, the HIV virus, which has an ingenious approach at avoiding our body's immune system. They live inside the white blood cells. Try to imagine that you're being chased around by a tank, and you come up with this ingenious strategy that if you were to hop on top of the tank, it wouldn't get you. And so effectively that's what this virus does to evade our immune system. So the heart is a pump of this blood. It circulates our 5 liters of blood around our body every 60 seconds. In fact, the blood leaves our heart at a rate of 3 feet per second, zipping around rather fast. If you ever were to be shot in the heart and died, there's something that happens which is behind the expression, the last laugh. Your lungs let out this sort of squeak should you be shot in the heart, and that's where that expression, the last laugh, comes from. If you ever thought about it, if the heart is full of blood, why should it itself need a blood supply? The coronary arteries, which supply the heart and if get blocked, is the basis of a heart attack. The reason is that the wall of the heart is so thick that despite being full of blood, from the outside in, it needs a separate blood supply, and those are those coronary arteries. They're called coronary arteries from the Latin corona, which means crown, because they sit on top of your heart, and their shape is very much like a crown. Now, A last note on the heart itself, before moving on to the circulatory system, is the test called an electrocardiogram. You might wonder, why isn't it called an ECG? Well, it's because it's Greek. Cardia, for heart, is spelled with a K. The circulatory system is like a highway. But at certain times, just like in traffic, certain roads are closed down and you have to take a detour elsewhere. And that's how our circulatory system works. It's like plumbing. Imagine your house, you're taking a shower, and during your shower, someone turns on the washing machine and the pressure drops because it's diverting the total amount of water to another place. And so, for example, when you're walking, the blood diverts to your legs, and if you're eating, the blood stops going to your legs and goes instead to your stomach, which is the reason why when you were a kid and you were at the beach and you just finished eating lunch, your mother would tell you, listen, don't go out and swim for a few minutes until your food is digested. That was the basis for that advice. Now your blood vessels are numerous and very circuitous, and so if they're placed end to end, it would be such a long tube, it would not only circle the earth, it would circle it more than twice. Fat is a bloody, well vascularized tissue, and consequently every extra pound of fat you want to add another 200 miles of blood vessels to the total. Now if the tubing is more, your heart has to pump that much harder to circulate the blood, and consequently generates a higher pressure to do so. And this is the basis for people, when their blood pressure is high, being advised to lose weight, so that there's less fat, there's less vessels, the heart doesn't have to pump as hard, and the pressure goes down. Now, it's a good thing for these gates, given that the circumference of the earth is more than 24,000 miles. If all the vessels were open at a given time, the heart would have to circulate the blood at nearly 3 million miles per hour. When these vessels become atherosclerotic, all that means in simple terms is that there's crud on the inner lining of the vessels, much like plumbing that's old. If you were to run a coat hanger through the plumbing, there's crud on the inner lining. The component parts of this crud, atheromas, is Greek for porridge. And this crud accumulates sort of like an oyster making a pearl, layer by layer. Now this coating of crud actually begins in your childhood. They're called fatty streaks, and continues through your life. When you're 50, there's some crud, and when you're 100, there's a lot of crud, and ultimately you died. For a great part of the reason is that your vessels are totally crudded up.